the organization. So having an Azure AD is a mandatory stuff because whatever you are using today as a O365 emails, right? Like your web emails. So to configure and use the web emails, Azure AD configuration is a mandatory configuration. It means your ID should present at Azure AD. So to present that Azure AD, there is a component called AD Connect. We need to install and configure and then synchronize your users from on-premises to cloud environment. That part we have seen it in the previous session. Okay. And as part of today's session, what we're going to cover is that how you can provide authentication using Azure Active Directory to your applications. That applications can be your in-house application. It can be your third-party application, right? When I say the in-house application, you're in a project, you will be having a development team, right? Your project developers will be working towards your own application to serve the business. Correct? So if you could able to recall Chiranjeevi or Siva, whenever you are logging into your organization, any internal applications, right? Are you providing your company username and password,
No.
right? There is an applications, for example, your payroll applications are in-house leave portals, in-house HR portals. These are all, it is meant to for your own employees, correct? Not for the external users, right? Let's say you are developing an application like business to customers. For example, your customers is completely different and the customers are from your own organization and your developers is deploying or developing a product. So at the end of the day, we need to provide him or provide them as a login option through your organization username and password, correct? To redirect that organization username and password for your end users in Azure, we have a concept called Azure AD app registrations. What we will call it as Azure AD
App,
app registration. So
app
app
registration.
registrations in Azure AD will helpful for you to provide an authentication, right? With the methodology called OAuth. OAuth is the token-based authentication, which will helpful for you. Let's say currently, are you able to see any application in the screen? Right?
No.
For example, your developers is working for a project name called HR portal for TCS, right? How come your HR portal TCS is meant to be TCS employees, correct? When I say the TCS employees to log into the application, they should provide their TCS ID and TCS password. Till that it is clear. As
Yes.
soon as they enter the TCS ID and TCS password, how come that ID, that validation will come to Azure AD, validate and go back to your like your application. That flow will be helpful. That flow can be configured using Azure AD. For that, as being an Azure administrator, your responsibility is creating an application. Let's say this is TCS. You can give application name preferably, right? TCS HR portal. Let's say redirect URL is nothing but where you are going to make use of these values. After creating, you will get some values. That values you are using for which application? You are using for web application, you are using for mobile and desktop based application, a single page application, or you are going to use it for, uh, as I mentioned, mobile, iOS, Android based application. All those things you have an option. Let's say my application is web based application. Let's say it's a HTTPS, right? HR portal TCS.com. right? hrportal.tcs.com. So providing this web URL also is a mandatory parameter. Okay, guys. Now, what you are able to see, I have created one application called AD app registration. We'll call it as TCS HR portal. What all you could see in the overview button, are you able to see something called client ID or application ID?
Yeah.
So this client ID will be respective to this app registration, that is TCS HR portal. And are you able to see something called tenant ID here?
Yeah.
This tenant ID is common across your organization. So if you are creating 100 number of app registrations also, your tenant ID will be common. So tenant ID will represent your organization. Clear? So this will be unique one which has been assigned to TCS company, and this client ID and app ID is representing your AD app registration of respective application.
Yeah. In the previous registration, if you select multi-tenant meaning, what does that mean?
You can also use different tenants as well. I will
But
take the screen. This is what you are referring, no? So Azure AD can be handles a request from a multi-tenant as well.
it's bi-directional or unidirectional?
It means
Means like the communication between, see, as you said, like multi-tenant, how the communication will flow? It will be
it
for
means
load
it
balance.
means
I mean, is there some I mean, how
the
we
tenant what they're referring here, let's say your authentication is coming from a Gmail, and the Gmail should is a different tenant, not from a TCS tenant, correct?
correct.
So that Gmail should be part of as a guest in my tenant, and then it will allow as considered as a multi-tenant directory. You can come from a different organization, but you should have an access in my company.
Mhm.
You
So
got
that
my point.
say, access meaning like you just like validate the access, or like the communication
Best
will flow.
example, best example I could give you now itself. So assume there is a TCS Azure portal,
Mhm.
right? Which account I have logged in here is a Gmail account.
Account, correct.
Okay. Similarly, right? Similarly, when your application comes in also, it will allow you to use your username as a Gmail to log into the application, but that Gmail ID should be part of a guest account. Currently, how we are all part of a guest accounts. So that TCS.com is one tenant, Gmail.com is one tenant. Let's say tomorrow you are allowing Infosys users, adding them as a guest account. The Infosys.com also one more tenant account. That's why we are calling it as a multi-tenant.
Okay.
Yeah. So to the developers from your end, what and all details you need to share is that client ID, this is application ID you need to share, tenant ID, this is the tenant ID you need to share. Along with that, you need to share the certificate or a secret. So secret is nothing but password. Let's say I'm just saying that this is a secret 01. You could see I'm just giving a description as like it can have like 10 years, 20 years also, but recommendation should be always go with the 1 year of expiration so that you can recreate it. Click on add. So this particular secret value you need to copy. If you go back and come back to the screen, this secret value will go away. You cannot see this secret value. Do remember that whenever you are creating the secret, by that time, make sure to copy this value. Right? If you go back to the screen, refresh the screen and then come back, value cannot be seen. It will be degraded. Okay. So for your a development team, you need to share app or client ID and then tenant ID and then secret. So these are all the values we need to provide to the developer so that by using that syntaxes in his development language, let's say if he's using Java, if he's using a .NET or Python. So each and every language, there is a simple syntax for a authentication using Azure AD. They could make use of it. And then if they use these URLs and the redirection will come and hit your Azure AD to get the token and then allow him to validate his credentials and then allow him to access the application. Clear? These details and to which and all this can be used for multiple applications. It is not like you can use only for one application. If you want, you can use this URL for a multiple applications also. Only thing is you need to be cautious if you are using for multiple URLs, that multiple URLs should be added here. Let's say it's a HR portal, right? You are using then HTTPS and then you are using for payroll.tcs.com. You just need to add the URLs. If you are using for 10 different applications, the 10 different applications should be part of this web redirect URLs. So assume that you are not added here and then they are trying to use what they will get, they will get that the requested redirect URL is missing in the respect to application. The error will clearly show you redirect URL is missing. Okay, let me try to show you the Azure AD. The redirect URL is missing. Where is the error screenshot I just thought of showing you guys? So what is the error it is showing here? The reply URL specified in the request does not match the reply URLs configured for the application. And it will give you the application ID also, which application the error is coming. So when you're facing such kind of an issues, what you need to do, you typically need to go here, whatever the URL they have been accessing, you just add here as a reply URL, it will resolve the problem. Clear, guys? This is one way of allowing your in-house applications to make use of Azure AD for authentication system. If they don't have the URLs where to redirect, you can click on the endpoint here. Here you could see that authorization tokens, right? OAuth tokens, endpoint tokens, version 1, version 2, all the details. You just copy paste based on their requirement for them to redirect the authentication to Azure AD. So how that request will authenticate to Azure AD? This is how. So you could see that login.microsoft.com is a common is a universal. And after that, you could see one ID. This is refers to tenant ID. It means it is specific to TCS organization, assuming that we are from a TCS company. So this tenant ID will be unique one. This is only dedicatedly for given to our organization only. This tenant ID will not get conflict with any other ID. And then the protocol they are using OAuth 2 version 2 and they are trying to generate a token. So these URLs, if this is universal URLs, let's see if you type OAuth to a token generation, they will get the syntax. You just need to replace the tenant ID. That's why I have given the app ID, tenant ID secret values to the development team. Is it clear, guys, till now?
Yes.
Apart from like web portals, login and accessing, there is something called API permissions. When I say the API permissions, using this app ID, or a tenant ID and the client secret, apart from logging in, I can grant you the permissions to manage the Azure AD also, another end. Here, what I can do, I can allow you to handle not only Azure AD, all the Microsoft products. Can you name it any product in Microsoft? That product can be handled and administer, read and write, and any kind of an operations can be done using your Azure AD app registration. So that permissions can be given at API permissions window. This is the API permissions window. By default, we'll call it as a Microsoft Graph, right? Earlier, it is in a different name. Now they have renamed it as a Microsoft Graph. So Graph APIs, it means I can allow this particular TCS HR portal client ID or an application to read and write of any of my read and write of any of my products of which is related to my Microsoft. That can be an Azure AD, that can be a SharePoint, right? That can be a kind of an Outlook, that can be an user, that can be a groups, you name it, any kind of a permission that can be done. Let's say if I click on add permission, let's say I want to give, this is Azure services permissions like Key Vault and other stuff, which is anyway we've been already aware of these services. So now let me click on the Microsoft Graph permissions. Let's say delegated permissions. This is for signed in users. Without signing in, your application can, the background itself can able to get the data. So let me, for a signed in users, for example, I want to delegate a permission. Let's say you want to send an email using this ID or configurations. You can do that send email operation. Are you able to see? You can send email using this as a credentials of app ID, tenant ID, and a secret. I can grant that permission. Let's say groups. If I want to create a group from my application to Azure AD, right? I can give that group read write all so that you can read, you can write all the groups in Azure AD. Similarly, let's say it's a SharePoint. This is SharePoint tenant settings. So if they want to manage this SharePoint as well, like SharePoint level permission settings, read, write, and other stuff, they could do that. So like that, any of the like users creation, user deletion, all those operations, if you want to perform, you can able to do that using this app ID, client ID, and a client secret. Using an app registration, you can allow the application to perform the operations instead of manually I log into my Outlook and then create an email, send it. That I can do it my own credentials. Assume that your application wants to send an email. That is their requirement, or composing an email, or delete an email, send an email, read an email. All those operations you can allow this application to perform. Here, let's say you want to manage SharePoint sites. You want to create a site. You want to delete a site or read the content of the site, right? Export a file, like download a file. So if you want to perform SharePoint related operations, you can typically provide them the consent. Is it clear, guys, the use cases of it? This is one of the requirement you might be received once you start works with Azure Active Directory or Azure Administrator. This is sometimes you will get a request that could you please allow the API permissions. They will give you the permissions what they want. Okay, this is where typically you go ahead and allow them to access. Clear? Any questions so far? Chiranjeevi, able to follow the other use case apart from user logging into your application using Azure AD,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
This is
also
clear.
do other.
So maybe previous class I'm not there. I have small question. Where this user information will be stored? How the validation will happen? Is there LDAP or
Here you have an users. So these are all the users we have.
how to sync this cover? Like okay, you already explained in the video. Okay, understood. I
Right.
just go.
So if you see this user 01, user 02, right? Are you able to see the headline is directory synced, correct?
Mm-hmm.
For all of our Gmail accounts, we haven't come from an AD. That's why we are seeing no.
Okay.
If you see your ID also is no. But when you see
Mm-hmm.
the user 01 and user 02, are you able to see the synchronization? Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Means these users are not created in Azure. They came from on-premises AD.
Ready. Okay.
Okay, that synchronization we have done. So when the request comes in, they need to go to the on-premises AD. They will validate it here itself.
Okay. And one more question. Like for example, the new user joined to an organization. We need
Hmm.
to come here explicitly add that specific single
No,
user, or like how the synchronization will happen. Is
not
there
re
any job to run?
not required. There is a component called AD Connect. That
Mm-hmm.
AD Connect will be installed and configured. That will continuously synchronize the use. Any changes you do, create, delete, manage, all the settings will be get replicated here. Tomorrow, if you are removing user 02, it will go away automatically.
What's the event run time? Like, is there any threshold or time of it will run? The job will run, or
The official time they will say 45 minutes,
okay,
but it will happen quickly.
okay, the job
Official,
will
yeah. But if you want to run or initiate our own trigger also can be run using PowerShell.
we can do that. Okay.
That will be completely with the server, Active Directory server. Okay. As I mentioned, app
Recently,
registration
like
will.
I mean, auth authentication, right? In our organization, they moved from one server to other. They took 24 hours for thinking. Actually, that's why I just got it. Doubt like what is the time?
What they have done, Chiranjeevi?
This like from one server to other, they just did the migration of this like what is it? I mean, I don't know the task. We didn't involve basically
Hmm.
because for 24 hours we don't have any access. They said so to the customer environments.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they said like they migrate. They took 24 hours for migrating. So and they said like syncing is taking long time. So syncing itself take 18 hours for them to
Hmm.
sync up. So the task was not known, but I just heard about this auth authentication,
Hmm.
some server level something they did
Okay. But
because of
as long as your servers are available, your users are available, that doesn't concern migration, which should not be affect the user authentication because
oh no
once
okay.
your users are synchronized, no, it's available Azure already, they could able to authenticate.
No, they said offline. They didn't do online actually. They said like it's an offline activity. So 24 hours. They said like it will be there won't be any access to. I mean specific to not all the portals, but specific SharePoint portals kind of. So those things were like they said like use after 24 hours.
Might be that is application migration they might have not done, not for
Actually,
authentication
fair
system.
point. Like they just listed some couple of which
Hmm.
we are not basically. No, it's an organization level updates, right? So for us, only SharePoint is the only one application. Had effect. Otherwise, rest and all was good. But it's like they specified some 15, 20 applications as a whole. Okay. I'm not
Oh,
sure. That's fine. I mean, maybe it's not related here. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's not all problems. It's open to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these app registrations, right, will also works as a service accounts for you. All right. Let's say this is an application ID. Let's say this is my app ID, right? This app ID, I'm just name, you don't think that I was just using this. This app ID can be provided like a user, like a service account to my subscription as a user. Let's say I'm just adding a role-based access control. Let's say I'm just adding them as a owner. So when I'm selecting the members, I can go ahead and search with my, sorry, here, creating a service principal, there is a different command. It should recognize. Okay. So generally, so if you create a service account also, right? There is a command line where you can run in this shell, right? PowerShell, create a storage. So what will happen if you just run the command to create one single line of a command, AZT SP create subscription, that is a syntax. If you just run that service account also can be listed in your Azure AD only, right? The service account, whichever you run it, right, that is also you can see in this app registrations window only. It is not like whatever you see in your real time tomorrow in this app registrations window. Not everything is used for application authentication. Some accounts, some registrations can be used for your RBACs, like service accounts, to manage your resources as well. Instead of providing users, they will use some service account purpose also. That is one more use case. Is it clear, guys, with the advantages and the use cases of Azure AD app registrations?
Okay.
Yeah. This is, as I mentioned, this particular app registration meant to be most of the scenarios to your in-house application, which has been developed by your company. Okay. There is an option called enterprise applications. Right? Before going to the enterprise applications, whatever I create in app registration will be listed down at enterprise applications. Why it is listed down in enterprise application? You can restrict the users. Let's say TCS HR portal is this particular portal is meant to handle only Bangalore employees, for example, assume, right? Bangalore employees are all part of one group, right? You can add this group, users and groups here by default, right? Add a Bangalore TCS users here so that what will happen? This application will allow the login if the user is coming from this allowed groups only. If they're coming from Chennai TCS users, the access will be denied. Clear? By default,
Okay.
your Azure AD app registration design is to allow every user. Are you able to see here? Assignment required. What is the setting here? You could see? No. It means you don't need specifically to assign anyone. By default, I will allow for everybody in the company. Whoever is comes, I will allow the authentication. So if you change it to the S and click on save, it means without adding in users, right? Without adding in users in this users and groups tab, your application will not allow anyone. Do remember Azure AD app registered applications default setting is it will allow all the users by default. This is because assignment required will be no. There's a default setting for app registrations. And if you wish like to change it to the S, add your required users and groups in this section so that only that users and groups only will have an access to the application. This is how you will restrict the application access. If it is the application is designed for some specific set of people. Clear, guys, how it can be done? And this properties, you can also change the logos and other stuff for your application. That also can be done. Okay. Now, actual enterprise applications when we will create. Here also there is a button called create, right? Whatever I create in app registration is listing here, and we have discussed the settings what can be done in this window. There is a other option called new application you can create in enterprise apps also. So enterprise apps is nothing but where you want to use third party products. When I say the third party products, all your SaaS products, right? Let's say if I want to log into Oracle products, if I want to log into the SAP products, but I want to use my TCS username and password, right? I want to use my TCS username and password, but the end user application is owning by different company. Best examples is ServiceNow. right? Every company is using ServiceNow today to manage their ticketing system, or you might have came across in your experience as well, right?
Yeah.
Workplace is nothing but your Facebook, Salesforce, Slack, Zoom. So these are only some applications. It will be having around 3000 plus odd applications is available in your gallery, right? You can add any kind of an app. Let's say if I'm adding Oracle, if I'm been selecting Oracle, these many products, it does support that single sign-on. So single sign-on in the sense you use one company username and password, log into multiple applications. Clear? Let's say if I want to use this Oracle IDCS e-business suite, right, for my company or my organization's sake, if I'm click on create this button, right? If I set up this, what will happen? To log into Oracle application, which has been owning, deployed, and managed by Oracle company, and as a TCS user, I will log into the application using tcs.com and TCS password. Clear? That is nothing but single sign-on. For that, what you need to do, you need to configure the settings here, single sign-on. SAML is the authentication type. Most of the companies, 100% or 99% of the companies will use SAML. Secure Assertion Markup Language is the full form of SAML. It is one of the secured methodology. Every company, every universal, I could say, will use it. To set up this, right, you need these details from your vendor because this product is not owning by us. This product is owning by Oracle. Before that, our business heads will go and speak with Oracle. Boss, I want to use your business suite. I want these many licenses, right? Just give me a minute, guys. I'm just receiving a call. Sorry, guys. So after the business proposals and license has procured, so when it comes to authentication front, as a Azure team, we will get involved and we will browse to the gallery, identify the product name and add the product and come back to the single sign-on. This is a collaborative work from a Oracle, right? Oracle Active Directory team of this application to Azure Active Directory team. So from the vendor, we need this identifier, reply URL, and sign on URL as a required parameters. This relay and logout URLs is optional. So all these details he has to provide to us. Understand, guys? These details you will be getting from the vendor manually. If not, he will share the metadata in a XML format. So if you're not giving these details manually, he will give it in a XML file. That file you just upload it here. Upload the XML file, upload, click on add. These details will be filled up automatically. Is this first step got clear?
Is it the one-time activity or like every time we need to do when we want to connect to the third-party application?
This is one-time activity against each application. Today, Oracle IDCS for e-business suite you are taking. Tomorrow you are taking a product from SAP Concur for travel management. And you need to do
Ah,
one more setup. because you
Uh,
are taking a licenses from SAP again.
okay. For SAP, I mean, whatever the task you do is a one-time setup only. No need to modify, no updates, no changes to the setups.
Nothing.
What we
Nothing. It's a one-time setup. Okay. Once the first step is done, your vendor will say that while you are single sign-on is happening, like they're authorizing your credentials, they will take one unique attribute of a user. Let's say in a company, there is a chances that if you just type Surendra in your chart list, there will be so many people will come as a first name with Surendra, correct? But when you type the entire first name and last name, it will definitely not match. It will be unique. When you see the email accounts, it will be always they will maintain the unique ones, correct? Email accounts will not be conflict with other users in the organization. So attributes and claims in the sense when your authentication is happening, your vendor, your will be claim one unique parameter to recognize your user identity, right? By default, we will send first name, last name, mail ID, your name, and user principal. So we are sending these 5 parameters. This will 99.9% of the scenario, it will be suffice. Right? 99.9% of the scenarios, it will be suffice for every application to work. They will claim, they will take any one of the parameters in the list and they will allow you to log in. Some cases, the vendor is saying that I want to have this attribute to be created. You just edit button here and create that attribute. That's it you need to do. It is very rare scenario. And then from our end, so first step, we take details from the vendor, correct? Here in this screen. And the second step also an attribute claim. Third step, what will happen? You need to download the metadata from Azure. Are you able to see the download button here? You need to download this application. Okay. And then you need to share this metadata to the Oracle team to whom you are working from a Oracle side. You need to share this metadata to this particular vendor. So that what will happen? He will configure the setup from his end. Sometimes they will also ask what is the login URL, logout URL, right? AD identifier. So these values will be part of this metadata, but still if they requested, you just copy paste these URLs. This URLs is nothing but login@microsoft.com/ your tenant ID URLs. That's it, nothing different. At the end, it will, as we are using SAML, it will say SAML2, right? Once both the ends, the configurations are done, you can do the testing the application. Is it clear, guys, how to set up single sign-on with a third party? The behavior is, this is how you need to, like any application. So you could see the configuration guide. It will take you to the Microsoft official documentation. Why it went to a different URL? Azure AD single sign-on with Oracle. Are you able to see the first one? You could see the products from A to Z in the screen, guys. These many applications, Azure AD does support the single sign-on. From 0 to 9, the numeric values from A to Z. If we just expand, there's hundreds and hundreds of applications. All right, let's say if I'm expanding O, what is our product name, guys? Oracle e-business suite, correct? Where is Oracle? Oracle Fusion ERP, Oracle PeopleSoft. You should have a document for this. What is the name? I didn't find it. IDCS probably. Let me check in IDCS. GHI. There's so many product guys. IDC. So for example, this is the application. So they will give you all the steps, are able to see how the identifier look like, which button you need to click, where to screenshot, everything they will give, which one you need to download and share it, what URLs you need to download, like set up IDC section, copy these values and share. So whatever we have discussed on a high level, here you could see along with the screenshot, you name it any product, third party products you are using it today. Let's say you are using Udemy in your company, but Udemy, you are using which account? You are using your company account or a different account to log in? Where is you? I don't find it here, but you could see here also Udemy as an organization will be available their applications, right? Whatever the applications we name it, most of the scenarios they will provide you the documentation as well. So this configuration guide should redirect to us to the Oracle, but some reasons there is a problem. It is going to the surface URLs, but the expected behavior from this configuration guide should be take you to the Oracle IDCS for e-business suite. Let me add and see one more application. You can see Oracle product here. Similarly, which product I will service now? You could see the read our step-by-step service now documentation. Are able to see it is perfectly redirect to the documentation. So where to click, what to add, everything you could see in this. Let's say they will show you scenarios. Let's say panel, go to the Active Directory, go to the enterprise application, select all applications, add new application, add from gallery, enter service now in the search box, select the application, right? Each and everything. Configuration, configure the single sign-on. So left-hand button, select the single sign-on method page, select SAML method, click on this SAML edit button, do this sign-on URL, identify URLs, right? And then download this. They are not taking a XML in this, they're taking a certificate. Download this certificate and give it to them. And when it comes to setup button, this is this URL. This is an Azure end. And on a product end also, they will give you the steps. Are you able to see? Configure the AD sign on at service now. So one end we have performed, other end they need to perform again. So single sign on, service now, and all other things you could see. This is service now window. This is right. They will go to the service now portal, where to do, and all the settings. End to end, you can find the documentation of every product what you do, guys. Not only for one product, I'm saying it will give you hundreds of products. Clear how to navigate to this URL and make use of it for your doing first time. This will give you an understanding and clear documentation against your each application single sign-on. Single sign-on is nothing but logging into third-party application using your, if you see these products are not owning by us, correct? Facebook is not owning by TCS, ServiceNow is not owning by TCS, you name it, Palo Alto Firewall is not owning by TCS, SAP is not owning, Adobe, these are third-party products and we want to use them in my company. All right, in such kind of scenarios, we'll go with the single sign-on setup. Right? As a configuration, as I mentioned, once after you added this application, go to the single sign-on, get this SAML data from your vendor. This data will be provided by your vendor. You need to exchange the values, guys. He will give you his metadata or values in manually. From our end, we'll share our certificate metadata, and then both parties will enable the trust, and then the authentication will happen. Right? All your enterprise applications by default, your app registration default design is allow every user, right? But your enterprise application behavior is by default, all users will be denied. Assignment is required button is yes. So that what will happen? Any user, if they want to try to log in, if until or unless he is part of this section, if you're not added the user and groups in this section, he cannot log into the application. That is default design. But if you want to change it to allow everybody, you can change the properties from yes to no. That can be done. Right? Just give me a minute. Yeah. So as I've been mentioning, until unless you are adding the users and groups in this particular section of any application, there's a default design that user access is restricted with by the button of assignment is required to yes button. So when I say the assignment is required, until unless you are assigned the users and groups in this section, they cannot able to access it. Is it clear? Harsha, Siva, Chiranjeevi, able to follow? Okay. And sometimes, as I've been mentioned, when you're dealing with single sign-ons, AD app registrations, or single sign with the third party, your ID, user access onboarding, like adding a users in this button from our end, same thing, your application end also should be onboard the users. Let's say I'm adding here as an user, adding a user, click on add. Let's say I'm just adding here Chiranjeevi as authorized user to access this application, right? So that from an Azure end, I have granted him an access. Same time, an Oracle e-business suite on a application level, the same account of a TCS ID of a Chiranjeevi's account should be onboarded, should provide an access, read access, write access, whatever the business they want to do within the application. The user should be onboarded at a source, similarly at the destination. Clear? Then only they could be able to access the application. Okay, guys, this is the process to onboarding a user at Azure. Same time, application guy also should onboard, then only the authentication will work. Is it clear till now? Let's say you want to provide an access for a one user, two users, it is fine. So that there's a 10 users only, the 10 users you will be Oracle e-business suite application owner will add 10 users manually. Assume that in your company 1 lakh employees are there. This application is going to be all 1 lakh employees. So he cannot, for us anyway, easy that I could add a group, one AD group I can add who is consisting of 1 lakh users so that all those 1 lakh employees can be allowed at Azure end. But application end, he cannot recognize our users and groups by default, right? Because he is from a different company. So in such kind of scenarios, you have an option of provisioning button. When I say the provisioning button, this particular window will helpful for you synchronizing users and groups from this window to the application window automatically. We'll call it as skim provisioning. Skim is a technology. It will be used to synchronize your users and groups from Azure AD application or Azure Active Directory to the vendor application so that he could just grant the permissions instead of onboarding them one by one manually. Clear, guys? So to enable the skim provisioning, you will get the details. Right here, the get started button will come. Generally, it is not coming for us. So here, if you just click on this button, your vendor will give you the username and code. Right, your vendor will be giving you the username and code. You need to use that username and code in this skim button so that you could able to authenticate with the vendor. They will use API technology in the backend. Okay. So by getting the username and password from the vendor, configure it, configure it application, and then try to synchronize the user. So whomsoever you added in the users and group section can be synchronized. If not, you want to send everybody in your company, that setting also will be there so that you could able to send the users directly from on-premises to, sorry, send the users from Azure AD application, let's say in this case, Oracle e-business suite to the destination application, to the vendor application directly. Is it clear, guys, how what is mean by this provisioning button, how it will function? Any questions? Chiranjeevi, Shiva, Harsha, able to follow? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. One more important thing I want to give you in Azure AD is about security. So as we don't have a licensing, it requires kind of a P1 and P2 licensing. So there is one concept in this called conditional access. This particular conditional access will be applied on your applications based on the application ID. It can be applied on app registrations. Let's see if I want to apply some security policies, I will apply it in this app ID. Similarly, if I want to apply some security policies on third party, my Oracle e-business suite also will have some application ID. So these app IDs will be used to enforce some security policies. When I say the security policies, let's say while today you are accessing your email over the internet, is it asking for a multi-factor authentication? It means apart from entering the password, it is also asking you to enter the OTP. Is it been happening today while accessing your mailboxes? That setting can be configured at securities tab and conditional access. They can enforce the security policies. It will be multiple policies, guys, like conditional access in the sense I can decide and say that, okay, this application ID, you allow to access only company given laptops only. If they want to try to access the application from their personal laptop, don't allow. That policy can be granted here. Multi-factor authentication can be done. Restrict the access only from countries. Let's say you don't want to allow the access to the application from a country like Africa, country like India. You can block that. if you want to provide access to only specific public IPs, not from multiple people, you can do that. Right? There's so many policies. Right? For that, we require some kind of a premium uh, licensing, but on a high level, conditional access will be used in most of the companies. That is where they will enforce your multi-factor authentications, device restrictions, and all of the stuff. Clear? Any questions, guys? With an Azure AD, what we have discussed today, app registrations, enterprise applications, and security of conditional access, which we have discussed just now. Any questions for today? Okay. If there is no further questions, we'll wind up the session for today and we'll come back by tomorrow. Tomorrow could be a kind of a last session for us where we will spend our time in understanding the monitoring aspects in Azure, how to monitor your entire Azure environment, what are the solutions which are available, in-house solutions, how you can generate an alerts and send it to the required recipients, alert creation and generation for your required monitoring parameters. We will see it in tomorrow's session. Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining in. See you tomorrow.